Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, one of the fastest growing real estate investing podcasts in the world. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors? Find out what got them to where they are now. Get insight into their daily habits and take these insights to inspire your own growth. Each episode, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor and the founder of Streamline, a data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage located in Madison, New Jersey. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, this is the free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Thanks for showing up for another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. We have a return guest, and you know I love that. It's John Bianchi, the founder of STR Search. You should know what STR stands for by now. It's short-term rentals. And with years of experience, a perfected formula, and the best data in the game, STR Search ensures that they match their clients with top-performing short-term properties. And you're going to hear soon all about it as we go into creating and understanding your short-term rental buy box. I'm doing it. You can do it too. Let's go. This is episode 285 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my return guest, John Bianchi, with his daughter if you're watching on video. John is the founder of STR Search. At STR Search, they extract only the most valuable insights from the best data, ensuring they find short-term properties that produce high returns. He was also previously on the podcast, episode 219 on February 24th, 2025. The episode was so good, we're going again in 2025. John, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Obviously, we talk all the time. And I'm going to disclose up front, for any of you old schoolers who know the old commercials, John, you're not going to know this because you're Canadian. Cy Sperling, the hair club for men, he had this commercial where he said, I'm not only the founder, but I'm also a client. So I'm going to tell you right now, I am a client of STR Search, but we're here to break it all down. And that may come up because it's just part of what happens on podcasts. I've actually invested in 3 syndications with one guest, 1 syndication with another, and I'm really into short-term rentals again after a long time away. So I'm excited to talk to you and go over some new material. The one thing I wanted to start with is how does somebody decide when they're looking at short-term rentals whether they should just focus only on the yield? Is it just about what level of participation that they want? Because this is something that you and I go back and forth on all the time.
All the time. Yeah, you know, what's funny is like I almost want to push it back over to you and be like, well,
yeah, what do you say?
So, you know, you're essentially you're asking like, how does somebody decide what metric matters to them the most, right?
Yeah, well, so here, let's put it this way, because I know what you guys do and you can produce something that's going to look like a great yield. But in order to get, you know, in the medium, low or to the high zone, it comes with like, you have to be good at operations. So you kind of have to know, like, are you ready to do what it takes to get it to the max? And if not, you know, maybe you tread a little bit slower and do something that's a little bit safer.
Well, see, so you're looking at a market where that is very true, but I would say that there are actually a lot of other markets where you don't need to be the most elite operator, but as long as you have the right property set up, then you can dominate.
Is that like Smokies? Like,
no, Smokies, you want to be good. Smokies has crazy competition.
Yeah.
A good example would be like a C tier city where there's almost like no competition, but you put together an absolutely beautiful listing. And then when anybody goes there, they're like, well, that's the best of the best. Right. Meaning they can clearly see it, and that makes it really easy to get the bookings that you want. It's still not going to be like the highest revenue generating property ever, but because the market is a C market, you are able to get the property at a significantly lower price and be able to still hit a good number. So anyways, yeah, like going back to the idea of like, well, how do we decide, you know, if somebody's going to be a yield investor or not? Everyone's always coming to us and saying what they want the most. So we're always asking that question first. Like, what is it that you care about the most? And then we try to craft a strategy and essentially a market and a property that revolves around that the most, right? So we've just been interviewing people we're hiring another acquisition role. And so we've been going through this one deal all day and it's top of mind. But it's a $1.5 million home that we're looking at that the yield, like the cash on cash, is between 4 and 11%. And
for year one?
For year one, yes, correct. Now, for this client, they make $800,000 a year personally, right? And so their biggest concern is the taxes that they have to pay. And they're trying to figure out, well, how do I avoid doing that? And just from that one deal, they'll save roughly about $150,000 in taxes that they would have had to pay out, right? Now, they're still going to end up paying taxes, but that's a huge chunk that they get to avoid. So that's a huge component for them. But here's the thing. Just because they get every single Airbnb gets tax savings, right? So like any $1.5 million home, as long as it's turned into short-term rental, gets the exact same thing.
Yeah.
The other component to this person was like, it was in close proximity to what they wanted, right? And then it's not going to necessarily lose money. It's not going to make a crazy amount, but it's also in a good appreciating market. And so it's never really like, oh, I just want cash flow. It's more of like, okay, what's number one? What's number two? What's number three? What's number four? And now let's try to make that work. So for this person, yield was 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. And I mean, I've always been an appreciation investor. You know that. So when I'm looking at the numbers, I'm thinking like, well, is this also going to appreciate? Like, not that you can get it all at the same time, but like when you're buying a property, unless you're only worried about the yield and of course the tax benefits, which you could get, I mean, most properties are going to appreciate. But if you pick right, and the market's ripe, and even the rental market is ripe, you know, you can make a couple $100,000 in just a few years. And then you're talking about widespread, you know, pluses to your bottom line.
Yeah. So I can talk only personally, right, to this, like how I feel about it personally and like where I've actually put my own dollars as of today. I've put it towards properties that are really low appreciation, but really high cash on cash. And I think this comes from this little bit of like protection that I feel like I'm trying to create for my family, because we have a business is doing well, but it's still a business, right? And as you know, with businesses, it's like there's highs and there's lows. And so I'm trying to figure out how I can like craft just another stream of income to be able to cover at least all the bills at a minimum.
Yeah.
And so that, you know, worst case scenario, something happens, I still feel okay on a day-to-day basis, right? I'm not like stressing too much. And so, but they're going to be super low appreciation, like extraordinarily low appreciation. So it really does depend on the person. But I agree with you. You know, the person I'm investing with, he wants his next property to be $1 million plus property in a really high appreciating place that, you know, he doesn't care about cash flow because he already has, I think, like 10 to 15 other Airbnbs that have really strong cash flow, but low appreciation. So time, you know what I mean? It's like, what is your portfolio? And then your portfolio can usually predict or dictate which strategy you're going to end up going for.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you know, the variety of price points that I've been looking at, from as low as like, you know, $250,000 up to well over $1 million. It's interesting to watch and see the data on it, because as long as you can afford something big, you can really cash flow if you're in the right market. I mean, you know, if you're talking about markets like Scottsdale, like they kill it on these 8-bedroom, you know, sleeps 19 things. It's not personally for me because that's just like too much upkeep. But I've had people on the show who have, you know, these big ones. And then when you see them, like they're pretty plug and play too, because you know who's going there. You know, it's going to take a little more wear and tear with that many people. But that's what you plan for.
Yeah, there's a property for everybody, I would say. We've learned that through this time period, right? We've when we first opened up the company, we were just working with TechVestor, the institutional fund, right?
Yeah.
And I had it in my head, like, these are the greatest, best possible properties, right? Like, because that's what TechVestor like drilled into my head.
Yeah.
And then we start talking to people and they're like, I don't care for yield. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't care for yield? Right? Like, what do you mean?
I feel like that's like me and Taylor the first time we talked. He's like, but that's it. You know, even when he was on the podcast, he was saying like, yeah, yield, like, because he adjusted to yield because it just looked so good.
Right.
But yeah, there's some of us who I think if you do like something you like, then you can get into yield after that, because you found one that you like and you know the systems, but you got to be ready for it.
I really do think it's so I would actually say most people are the opposite. At least I'm the opposite. Let's put it that way. I'm more of like, let me get one that's yield, then I'll get one that I like, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like, let me secure the money, then I'll play around with it a little bit. But the thing is like, it's not the only factor. I've learned this through so many conversations. Your personal situation, your business, everything else that you have allows you to be able to decide, hey, I'm going to get one I like first, and then we'll kind of decide after that we'll go for a yield one, right? Because now you have that flexibility. I remember talking to this one guy. He got 3 different $1 million properties in Broken Bow, which is a market I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
And I think it's like really hard to cash flow. There's so much competition for a lot of reasons. This guy bought 3 properties. And I'm like, that's insane. Like, why would you do that? That's not the place to do it. I could have found you so many other spots, right? And they're like, I'm going to have such a huge tax savings. It's not even going to be funny. And the person's like, makes so much money from their business that they can cover the bill during a recession. That's my whole thing when it comes to yield. That's, when we hit a recession, can you hold on to the property? Well, if you have this other income stream that's 10 times or 100 times what you would get from that little bit of cash flow, then it doesn't really affect you, and you're going to hold for appreciation. You get all your tax savings. It's okay if the property breaks even or loses money, and you're kind of moving forward. And we're seeing a lot of that nowadays, which is not the smartest investing, but sometimes it is. Like, it just depends on your strategy or your entire portfolio.
Exactly. That it's more like a diversified investment. I mean, we're recording on August 6th. We just published an episode, I think, this week, a few days ago, with John Pazia. And he was saying, like, these people with high incomes, like at the end, they just may decide towards the end of the year to just get a short-term rental. And the metrics that we're talking about and that we obsess about aren't really as important to them. Like you're saying with this one person, it's like they just won, boom, they're going to get that nice tax savings. And if it breaks even, it's fine.
Honestly, even just saying that like makes me like almost cringe a little bit.
I know. Yeah.
Like, I get there's a point where it's like, I get it, but there is a falling off point, right? So
from your point of view, you're just like, well, you could do better with the money.
Yes. And yes, definitely. I can. Yes, definitely. Like, that is a huge component. But the other component is simply the people who will rush in just to get the tax savings, right? Is extraordinarily short-sighted, in my opinion. Like, very, very, very short-sighted. They're getting close to the end of the year. So we have, this month, we're in August right now.
Yeah.
September, November.
Yeah, we're in crunch time.
In these next 3 months, the amount of people that are going to buy really, really dumb properties is going to be through the roof.
I agree.
Because they go, oh my God, I've been wanting to get this tax savings thing. I think I have to do it. And I'm just going to go buy a short-term rental. And then they're going to start looking. And maybe they've been looking for like 4 months. They still haven't found anything. They're like, I just need to pull the trigger on something and I'll figure it out from there. And then they're going to buy that property that loses $30,000 a year, right? After all of the debt and the operating expenses. And they're going to go, that's fine. I saved $100,000, so it's no big deal. And then the next year is going to roll around when they don't get their tax saving, but they still lose $30,000. And they go, well, that kind of sucks, right? Now they're like, okay, I've lost 60,000 but I'm still up 40,000. And then one more year and before they start going, all right, I got to get rid of this property. I'm not making a penny off of it. I got to try and exit it. And the reason I hate this is because I love this saying, everybody looks like a genius that holds real estate for 20 years, right? Everyone, they're genius. Oh, you held it for 20 years? Like, wow, that did so well. But if you don't have the option to hold for 20 years because you're losing so much money, you will have to be forced to sell. And you can't predict exactly what the market is going to be like when that time comes, right? So that's the part that scares me.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is important when you're trading Airbnbs, when you say you have a lot and you want to sell one, when you have the data, it's great. I think it's a metrics, but that metric only appeals to other Airbnb investors who have help. Like if just a rando and a rando agent are looking at your listing and you give them the perfect data, like they're going to get it, but they're not going to get it.
Right.
Because, and maybe that's good for you as a seller because they're going to see the numbers are great and they're going to be terrible operators. But a lot behind the scenes goes into operating that's not, necessarily on the metrics bottom line there.
That is what you just mentioned there is actually a focus for myself personally with STR Search. When we first opened, we went in with this mindset of like, we get the right property, get the right market, the rest will figure itself out and like people will bring it to life. And then you realize that like people will put together these beautiful properties and take photos with their iPhone and you're like, what are you doing?
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, God,
or they hire somebody who's, costs maybe like $250, $500 and the photos come out okay. Not even, or even just good, but they're not great. And the problem with this and what I struggle with is that all of the competitors in their market have great photos.
Yeah.
So that component was this huge realization, like maybe like 3 months in when people, sorry, not 3 months in, but when people started to put up their listings, we're like, we got to solve for this, right? And try and figure out a way to make sure this doesn't continue to happen. And now what we're noticing is that the pricing, so what people are putting as the nightly rate, they're hiring managers sometimes who have no idea what they're doing. Not our recommendations, not our people.
Yeah.
But and they're
There's
like,
so many programs that do dynamic pricing. Why would they hire someone? I mean, like,
exactly. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say here is that you're talking about the operational side being such a huge component that some people just miss, and they don't get the ins and the outs of what they have to put into this. And we're noticing that over and over and over again, especially as we get more and more clients who are just tax focused. And so then therefore, as a company, we have to solve for these things so that the people will be able to hit their revenue numbers that we are projecting, so that they're like, oh, these guys weren't full of poop. And they then come back for another property and they're like, hey, we can keep working with you. So we're trying to solve the marketing piece. We're trying to solve the revenue piece. We're trying to solve the operating piece. Even though we're an acquisitions company, it matters that all of it flows properly. Otherwise, you're not going to hit the revenue numbers.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's like the development and iteration of your company from the beginning to now. I mean, it's important for all companies, anyone who's operating in the investing space, whether they're advisors or something. We were saying this right before we hopped on, but like, you can't just sit on your heels and say like, hey, we're good. You know, let's just keep doing the same thing, because if you want more clients, you're going to get different opportunities. And then, as you're saying, like, wait, okay, in the beginning, we were thinking, hey, we're just going to punch these out. The numbers look great. But now we've got tax consequences. You know, we have bonus depreciation back. Like, there's a lot of different things that change it. So short-term rentals, I think it's important for everybody to know this is not necessarily just plug and play every year, especially with regulations. You have to know if you're in an area where, the regulations are a little iffy. You know, it's a little bit more risky.
Regulations are always step one. Those ones, the iffy regulation markets always scare the hell out of me. And if we ever have a client who like really wants a place like that, we're getting them to say that over and over again. Like, I'm okay, I'm okay, right? Because like, we don't want to ever be the people who put people in a market that then gets banned and they're forced to sell.
Like, exactly.
Worst case scenario.
Yeah, somebody just commented on LinkedIn, you know, on a great question. They asked me, like, you know, for, you know, what we're doing up in Catskill area. They were like, you know, what do you do? Because there's a lot of areas up there where it's like, you know, there's 68 licenses, but there's like 1,000 Airbnbs. It's like, would you allow someone to do that? And I said, like, as an agent, I'm going to say no. Like, I'm going to have them commit or in writing something like, hey, I understand that it could change. Yeah. I mean, it can always change. But like, if you also know that you're in violation, I don't really want to be in that. And I wouldn't do that for myself, so I don't want to do it for someone else. Yeah,
the violation one, like, we've never put anyone in a market that had regulations that didn't allow you to operate.
Yeah, you know, that's just silly. Yeah.
It's so silly. And people do it. People build like, I know people out in LA who have entire businesses built up that are 100% illegal. They're making so much money, but I'm like, there's no, like, other than the cash flow that you might be receiving, there's no value to that business. Like,
well, like you said, though, before, at the day that you get caught and then it's all over, like, now you have nothing coming in.
Correct.
You know, you're going to pivot to long-term rental, and that's going to be like 1/5. You won't even be able to pay your bills in LA with long-term.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So, and it just doesn't really make sense to me, but people do what they want. And I'm not here to babysit other people making bad decisions, but we just don't, we don't do it within our company. And that's, I think, the simplest thing we could possibly do. You know what I mean? Like, that's a 101 of.
Yeah. Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying the return episode with John Bianchi. And if you're getting that STR fever like me, you can use my link at bit.ly, and that's bit.ly/STR Search Zen, all one word. That's where you can find out all about what STR Search can do for you. And now this is John's second appearance, but I've also had Taylor Jones of STR Search on the show and Mark Lumpkin of STR Cribs. And we've had several other STR operators. This is just one about STR Search. If you're interested in short-term rentals, explore all the options, see what you can do. And if you're interested, use my link. Let's get back to the show. Well, one thing I wanted to bring up for other people, because we went through this, like, you and I both put something into our separate chat GPTs for an area and got different answers.
Yeah.
And so I think like you can't rely on anything except what's on the town's website, and then you still need to call. So I found, especially talking to a lot of agents that I know in New York, now that we're going up there, it's like, no, they're saying like things are changing so rapidly. You have to take what you see on the website and then call and confirm that it's still that way, because they may tell you, actually, in 6 months, we're going to release 20 more licenses. You may be able to get on the list quick and then be in the process instead of missing out on that. Are you finding that? Because this is a huge part of the STR game, is knowing the regs, knowing the areas, and seeing what's coming ahead, so you don't have a property that gets you in trouble.
Yeah, so like we were talking about just before we got started, the importance of having realtors in the market that truly understand exactly what's going on within the Airbnb world is crucial for us, right? Like it's such an important piece for us to partner with the right people. I think we can say this on here, right? We have officially partnered together within one of the markets, which is super exciting. We started off helping you find the property, and the more we communicated, the more we talked. We're like, why are we not working together on this, right? We decided to move on from one of the agents that we were working with, so we could work directly with you. And you're going to be a huge, crucial piece to our ability to understand the boots on the ground for the areas that we're looking into, right? We'll provide the data, the yield, the markets, the overview, all that kind of stuff, but really you can touch it and feel it, whereas we can't.
It's so interesting because we're just, we're going through this because we started, but like, there was one property that we put through, and then I went up last week and looked at like 4, and I said like, this property actually looks pretty good, but the drive up sucks. Like and that's, to me, and you, of course, knowing this with short-term rentals, like the curb appeal matters. You're going to be fine if you're like in the middle of the woods or something. But if you pull up, and what I was saying on this one, like across the street, the neighbors were a disaster. They had like 13 cars. There was stuff everywhere. That's not that already could be a 4-star review, even if the inside's perfect. And it's exactly as I said, how you get there, can you get there, what's around it, and how close you really are to things really matter. And that's where it is. You can do that part, but you have to have these partners with local agents in all the markets that you work with. And even though when we were looking at something in the Poconos, and then I talked to Xander up there, I was like, oh, wow, this is like great information, and I've got to see it, by doing it myself, but also by going through the system. Yeah. I really think that's where the partnership is important. And I think maybe that's something that people don't know. If you're looking for short-term rentals, and even if you're not working, with STR Search, you need to have an agent who understands not just the market, but what short-term rentals do in the market. It's so important.
Yes, that is. And I'll say this very nicely because I know you're in that role, but also take everything they say with a grain of salt and go do your own research as well, right? I love all the
I feel like that's like, if you say you're working with like us, you have STR Search, you're with me, it's like you listen to both, and then you also work on your own, call the town, make sure you have to.
Yeah, exactly. The amount of due diligence you can do is never enough. You know what I mean? Like always trying to feel as confident as possible. I find talking to zoning people is actually one of those like the biggest things to make you feel very, very good. Shoot. You're just talking about the curb appeal and the neighbor with the properties across the street, right? So you're obviously in upstate New York, which is, I almost never, ever talk about the markets that we're in, just because we've helped people place so much money into these markets that I don't want to increase competition for them. But upstate New York is so complicated that I'm not worried about it.
There's so many different towns. It's like, And first of all, it's like, this is a town, and then there's a hamlet inside the town, and then there's a city underneath this. It's a very intricate market. So good luck.
Exactly. Good luck. We're slowly peeling it apart and learning and diving deeper. It was the same thing for us at the Poconos. I always tell people trying to get into the Poconos is like walking across a field with a whack load of landmines. And it's you got to know the path, right? And I feel like upstate New York is extremely similar to that. So I don't mind talking about this, but the idea there of your neighbors being across the street have a whole bunch of like junk cars all over the place, and you're from New York and you just rented this like romantic secluded cabin, and all of a sudden you're like, well, this is not what I wanted, right? You get 2 people to put that in the reviews, and you can call it a day, right? Like you're not going to be able to hit those revenue numbers anymore.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's very important to have the realtor be able to check that out. And we have the same thing in cities, right? So in these city markets, when people are going, we just want the neighborhood to not feel like the ghetto. As simple as that, right? Because the people are going to drive up. We want them to feel safe when they're there.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was going to go into more detail on that. But yeah, it's the exact same idea in all these different markets.
Yeah, I mean, I think I liken it to just traditional home sales. Like, when I was just before I was licensed and when I was a kid, when I was looking at my first properties in my 20s, like for myself, I wasn't with my dad, and there was no online MLS then, so you didn't really know what it looked like until you got there. And we would get there, and I would be in the car, and I'm like, "Nah, I don't need to go inside." And they're like, "Oh, what do you mean? Come on, let's look inside." I'm like, if I don't like the outside, I don't want to live there. I'm going to be annoyed every time I come home. But that's so much more important with doing short-term rentals, because that first drive up is what starts the trajectory of your review. And if you go up there and it doesn't look like it, or there's crap around it, you're already down to a 4-star. Now, just walking in, you have to earn it back up. Right. You may still earn it back up, and they may say, you know what, that wasn't their fault. They didn't know, but it's a hard thing to do. And I've known as a guest, like, when I pull up, and I'm usually always annoyed when I pull up, because I can find a problem with anything. But it's like, like that starts your review trajectory, and you could be in trouble. So
I have the best example of this ever. It was the first Airbnb that I got in Chicago, and Chicago is really tough with parking. And this was like, parking is an amenity. If you're like, hey, we have a driveway, they're like, awesome, right? You want to promote it, talk about it, stuff like that. And so we get this one place where it's kind of busy in the front. Like it's honestly this like weird like triangles sort of scenario.
Yeah.
And parking isn't like super easy right out front. So but luckily in the back, there's this a whack load of parking. There's a huge space of all this parking that you could get into. You go down an alley and you come in and there's parking. The not so great part about it was that there was an abandoned short transport truck that was sitting there with graffiti all over it. There was overgrown grass everywhere. All the dumpsters were over there.
Welcome to Chicago.
Yeah, welcome to Chicago, right? You show up and that's what you get. And then you go through the back door. And when you're going up, eventually there's a spot where it goes from like 10-foot high ceilings as you're walking up the stairs to like about 5 foot, and you got to kind of crawl around that. You get in, and there you go. You're in a Chicago apartment. And so that's what I was like, that's obviously the more convenient way. You got better parking, you don't have to struggle for it. So everyone goes up that way. The first like 10 reviews that come through all mention it, right? Even people commenting, being like, this is, they just didn't feel good. They're like, this is weird. This is not great. They just felt sketchy or whatever it is. So I go, you know what? It is so much more convenient to go through the back, but everyone is having a bad first impression. It's done. I'm not even going to mention that's an option. Park in the front. If you park in the front, you pull up to a brick property. You open up the stairs. There's brick on the inside. It feels like that like rustic kind of feel as you go through. Not one person complained about it from there on out, and it was just simply because I moved them from the back to the front.
Look, the start of everything is how you don't want to have to recover.
Correct.
You don't want some. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's just part of hospitality. And that's where it gets different when you're full yield, which is fine as long as you've hired all the companies and the managers to do everything. But it's still different. To me, I want to get back into it because I don't personally want to show up and talk to the people, or, I'm fine doing, online messages. That's great. But I really want to present something in a hospitality viewpoint, because I think, of course, we know that's how you win. Because just for people to know, when John and I are going through properties together and we're just looking at stuff, we're looking at all the competition. And in my head right away, I'm like, I can beat that. Ooh, that one. That's pretty good. I'm good, but I'm not going to beat that. Maybe I can be as good as that, but then it's nice to see okay, that's something to aspire to. And also, does your property have the space to compare to that? That's a big thing too. If you're looking for, what the amenities you need, hot tubs, can you put it on the deck? Or, do you have room for a game room? Do you have that detached garage? These are all things that can really adjust income and spend and make a big difference, and also can affect your curb appeal on what you see when you get up there.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think my own opinion on you is like one of the reasons I think you love this Airbnb space nowadays is because of that creativity side, right? Like I know you're an arts guy.
It's better than flipping.
Yeah. You can, I truly believe that some of these Airbnbs are a work of art. I think they're beautiful.
I completely
don't
agree.
consider myself to be an art person by any means, like in that sort of sense. But when I look at some of these Airbnbs, I am like in love with them. I'm like, how can I do that? How can I create that? Right?
Yeah.
And there is something to that, but that obviously then you got to make sure to deliver on the hospitality side. But you can figure that one out, in my opinion. If you buy the wrong property in the wrong area, the wrong curb appeal, and you can't set it up properly and you overpaid for it, you've already lost the race, right? But if you do buy it properly, and then you can figure out the hospitality side. How can I make this better? How can I make it a better experience? How can I, you know what I mean? And each group is an experiment of how to make it even better. And you can learn those things as you go, right?
Yeah, I personally think that the aesthetics of the place are more important than the communication. Not that the communication is not important, because if everything is perfect, you're like we're saying, you're setting the stage. They're already like, oh my God. You know, like when you go to a good one, you're like, oh my God, like every nook and cranny has everything. And look, there's a record player and like everything exactly how I thought, because the photos are more experiential, like the good photographers do. You're already in the vibe. So then, when there's not toilet paper, you just find it in the closet. But if you come up and the front's not, I guarantee you don't see that toilet paper. You're like at a 3-star already.
And exactly. Right. You have a longer leash for a more beautiful property, right? Like whenever there's that not as nice, you're like, I want it to be perfect, but nothing can be perfect because you're already annoyed with the place. Like
I am, but that's me. I'm if I don't like something coming up, then I'm nitpicking everything. I'm like, look, that that outlet cover's crooked. My sister's like, who gives a shit? What are you talking about? I'm like, I'm just off on a tangent now because the front didn't look like I thought it was going to, like, or one room isn't available or something.
Right. Those tiniest things. It's kind of, I mean, we do this in our own lives. I actually I try my best to avoid this. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and for whatever reason you're off, and then you go out of you're going into the shower and like you hit your foot a little bit against something. You're going, oh, this is going to be a bad day. Right. I catch myself every once in a while doing that. I go, nope, don't let me fall along that track, because then I'm going to just see everything else is worse. But it's so easy to fall on those tracks. And so many people do that. And they aren't even aware of it. And essentially what we're trying to say is that first impression causes this sort of spiraling effect of everything getting worse and worse and worse. And so, I love talking about this at this depth, because a lot of people don't get that. They don't get it. They don't get that the property, not only when you put it together, when it's listed on Airbnb, when people are seeing it from that point of view, it needs to just be a wow factor. It needs to be like oh my God, like I cannot wait to stay here. Like this is what I've been waiting for two reasons. The first one is because like that's what you want people to feel inside, right? That's how you're going to get those good reviews. You're going to get that longer leash that we were just talking about. But that's also how you make money in Airbnbs, is by having the place that people are like, I need to stay here. Because now they need to pay $500 a night for a 1-bedroom in this place that they need to go to, because it's going to be that amazing experience that they dream up in their head, that they see on Instagram or whatever it may be. And so that now they need to pay for it. And that's how you turn a profit, right? Yeah. With a lot of these Airbnbs nowadays. Not every Airbnb, but most of them need to be like that, right?
Yeah. And I think it doesn't make any difference what the price is. Not that you can just price at anything, but if somebody's already agreed to the price and they come in and it's everything that they wanted and more, they'll never think about the price, and they'll rebook again and they'll tell their friends. It's like, okay, we agreed to the price up front, but they delivered and then they over delivered, which I think we can maybe talk about. Airbnb is now adding all these like experiential things, but I think you can do that on your own. You just, like, to me, especially when we were talking about New York, I was just on the phone with someone yesterday. I'm telling them, I was actually on a Zoom. I don't talk on the phone. Everybody knows that. But it's like, I was saying, like, listen, if you're going to go to a small town, you need to meet all of the independent restaurants, find out who the masseuse is. Now you're building your own personal thing where you can do upgrades on your own, where some of that's going to go into your own pocket.
Yeah, I love that logic for upstate New York. Doesn't apply to everywhere, right?
Right.
But it definitely applies to, some of these more experiential locations, right? This is why I really enjoy, like, just so you know, you're the only client that I work directly with. You are because
Well, we're like friends. We just like to talk about this stuff if in case anybody can't tell. It's like, but just so people like, the reason why I think we've become such good friends is because we just throw stuff back and forth. So I feel like I can tell you stuff about your business and you're not like, oh, well, the fuck is he telling me this about my business? It's like, we just like real estate. So I think everyone needs to find people like that in their businesses, because you just like pinballing stuff. And it's also fun because you can find new stuff by showing each other, oh, actually, that makes sense.
Yeah, I have loved how this has gone, because I do appreciate the candidness of like, this is good, this is bad. Because it's like, okay, I need to know that because it's the only way we can get better. That's for everything in life, right? So it's when you find somebody who's willing to tell you the truth, stick very close with them and like try and figure it out, right? But yeah, like you're the only client that I work directly with. Obviously, I built out a team to be able to scale and be able to help with more people. But for you specifically, it's honestly turned into, I want to share exactly what's actually turned into, because I don't even think you know this.
Yeah.
We were always heavily focused on like a very specific type of property. But what you were looking for was out of our wheelhouse. No, you're not out of our wheelhouse. It was not a thing that I could go like this and have. I couldn't snap my finger and it'd be like right in front of you, right? And so it took a little bit of this, like, how do we go into this area where we know there's potential, but it's far more complicated, far more in depth, far more like needing to weave through some more data and be far more creative with the property to be able to bring it to life. And you were just so open to letting me fail as I figured it out with you and going through that. And I think I have personally just enjoyed it a ton, because I love breaking things down and like building out that process and figuring out how we can actually decipher this new area. That's like one of my favorite things to do, but also learning what matters, what doesn't matter, how you like it, how you don't like it, and going back and forth to break it apart. It has been extremely enjoyable for me. And we've literally created an entire new subset of property types across the country and a system for being able to find it, because you let me fail going through with you back and forth.
Yeah, I think it just goes to open dialogue. Like, we're just kind of going back and forth on stuff. But I think this is what good companies do, and anybody, whatever part of real estate investing you're in, or if you're new, don't just, like we were saying before, don't just take what, we're saying, do your own research and be clear on what you want to get out of it, and also what you like, because it could still transform into more things, but you still want to, like, to me, real estate's just fun. It's fun. I just like it. So I don't have to get properties. So if I'm going to get them right now, I want to make sure it's not like a collar around me, like someone who buys a 5-family and I don't really want to manage it. Like, well, why'd you get a 5-family? Just invest in a syndication. There's other ways to do it if you don't really like it, but like, we obviously both like it.
Yeah. I think we both enjoy this idea of that creativity of taking something in upstate New York and kind of making it a piece of art and trying to figure out how we can do that. And I think that's the one component that we've kind of like bonded over almost, and like trying to figure it out to the point where we're looking at $250,000 properties and going like, what can we turn this into? All the way up to like $850,000 properties and going, does that work too? What could it be like? Right. And obviously there's different yield expectations on both ends, but I don't know, whatever you end up with is going to be a one of one, in my opinion. We're going to end up landing on something that is extraordinary. Another little fun note is that you've seen the most properties out of any STR Search client.
Because I can't decide. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And also we are right now for the month of July, we got clients under contract in 11 days. So from onboarding call to under contract was 11 days. And we have this metric where it's the average to under contract.
And then the Jonathan Green number.
We have to have a median because of our outliers.
That makes sense. But again, it goes to personalities, because like somebody who can come in, like it's not like the first properties I looked at they would have been fine. You know what I mean? Right. But I'm trying to do the longer term. So once I start buying, then it's like, well, this is my avatar. And to your point, talking about, the art, I don't know if you know this, but I was in the art world for 6 years. I had 4 different galleries. I was a curator at a museum. So going into short-term rentals is like curation to me, like hanging art shows and exhibition design, which I taught at Montclair State. It's like, I really get the idea of design. It's why I'm good at flipping. It's just the numbers don't really work, and flipping annoys me. Short-term rentals, you at least get the feedback. And the thing that has changed as I've got older, when I was younger and I was doing short-term rentals with my sister and I would get bad feedback, I would be like kind of an asshole about it. Like, oh, they don't know what, I mean, sometimes they were just idiots, but a lot of, but you can't think like that. Now, every review that you get, even if it's annoying, you're like, they have a point somewhere. Right. You know, there's something about it, like, because that's how you eliminate the future reviews, just like you were saying about the Chicago. Oh, okay, like this is an overflow. Let's just put them in the front, problem solved. Or, you know, if say like some of these places that we're looking at, and also in some off the beaten path, like you get to a point where it's asphalt and then it's a dirt road, or it's a hill, so like people can't take sports cars. You have to tell people that. Right. You can't not put that in your listing, because then you're just asking for 1-star reviews. Yeah. You just broke my fender, you know, my Maserati broke, right. You know, like, okay, you can't do it.
I know exactly which property you're referring to right now too. I can picture it in my head. It's the dirt road, goes right up. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that. I have a good example of that too. I got a property in Chicago. It was directly beside the train. So it, you know, that
it's
elevated
loud.
Yeah. So elevated train directly, here's the house, here's the train. And so if you're on that second floor, you look out the window and the train's just running by. Yeah. Now, inside, totally fine. They like really did a good job insulating. Yeah. Outside, you have to pause as it goes by. I tried to avoid it at the beginning. Once, like, I was like, oh, I don't know, like, this isn't that great. And so I didn't mention it. And then people started complaining. They're like, it's literally on top of the train. And so then I made it in my listing. I put it in my first message, and I put it in the house manual. I put everywhere saying like, hey, expect this. Not a single person said anything afterwards, right? Like you have to.
I think you could even play that up now. Like I think as people get smarter, you know, like live on the High Line. I would, if I knew what now I know what I know. And if I got that place, I would have made it the highlight, like train right by, like watch people go by, wave at them. You know what I mean? Like you're truly in Chicago. Like anyways, it would have been, you know, you always look back on stuff. And I think that's part of what's fun about short-term rentals, because each one is a different story. So if you're good at storytelling and curating and designing an experience, which is what you're doing, you want to make it a very specific story. That's why themed Airbnbs work, right? Like maybe I don't want to go stay in a Harry Potter one, but if you lock one of those up in Orlando, you're going to be booked 24/7 forever.
Yeah, well, maybe not Orlando. I've got my two cents on that, but
because there's 15 of them and they're all, you know, weird.
Do you know Christy Wolf?
Yeah.
Chris,
I've had her on. She's been on. I mean, look at her properties. They're the most unique stays that are out there. You know, if you want to stay in a potato, you go to one of Christie's or the Shipwreck House.
You know, so the Shipwreck House, I actually just want to bring that one up. I find that one fascinating. I think about that one often. Because for anyone who doesn't know, it's this idea of like this house, it's on the water and it's a shipwreck, but she has this treasure that you have to try and find while you're there, and she resets it for every single guest, and it takes a bit to figure it out, right? So it's almost like an escape room but a treasure map, and you're hunting, and that's a part of the experience every time. And I just keep thinking to myself, for especially like, let's say upstate New York place, right? Sometimes if you do it right, you can get a place in the middle of absolutely nowhere, right? And that's ideal. You get that seclusion, upstate New York, they get out of the busy city and the concrete, and they get to this place. Well, now they're there, and it's like, okay, well, you give them a hot tub. How long can they sit in there? How long can they sit
right. Right? Well, that was 7 minutes.
Right. That was nice. Now what, right? And so let's go for a walk. But the idea is like, well, what if you could put even more into it, where you create this theme of like the shipwreck idea? It's like you're going there for a theme. Like people go to escape rooms for an afternoon. What if you went to an escape room for the weekend and it was like so well put together and they could reset it every time? Now you're not just paying for a place to sleep. You're paying for this experience. It's like, well, how much more would somebody pay for that? Right? Because now they're getting like two things. And how much more would that cost me to do in comparison to how much I can make? Right. And I think about it, it really wouldn't be that much. You just have to be creative of how you put it together. so that you kind
Yeah,
of
and you just train the cleaning staff to put it back to that way. I mean, I'm in my head, I'm thinking like, this is genius. Kids scavenger hunt or adult scavenger hunt, and then at the end is some treat. Like
Right.
I would do that because, like you're saying, if you're going to somewhere where you're not close to a town, right? We went to dinner, now we're home. We have 3 hours to kill. We did the hot tub earlier.
Right.
Sure, we've all been in a sauna. Like, how many things can you do? You go in the game room, but like, I mean, the properties that I've been looking at are on the smaller end. So I'm not talking game rooms or pickleball. So you do have to get a little bit more creative with what can be, you have the wellness vibe, of course, where you get the spa feels, but like, I would want to do something in the house that I would be like looking for stuff. I think it would be fun.
You know what's interesting? As I'm thinking through this, right? There's this whole idea, like a lot of the group that we've been focusing on specifically for you to be able to hit your numbers are going to be that anniversary getaway, right?
Yeah.
It can't just be a couple going away for the weekend. It's got to be that special occasion. They pay a premium because they want to create a memory, and you're giving them the space to be able to do that. You don't necessarily need to like create a scavenger hunt for them, but maybe there is something you can provide. But let's just hypothetically say that there isn't. But the group that's always kind of bothered me, if I'm being honest, like, it's like I can't like figure it out, is the small families.
It's tough.
The mom and dad, 2 kids, where a 2-bedroom works really, really well, right?
Yeah.
You get a small price. But the thing is that families tend to not pay that anniversary premium to go to these places. They're like more on a budget. They got 2 kids. They're trying to like not to do that. But what if you could turn that place into, I don't want to keep saying scavenger hunt, but a theme of some sort that is even if it were to be like a 6-hour thing on the Saturday that they're trying to decipher. And so they get in Friday, right? They spend the time on Friday, then Saturday comes around. That's the thing they're doing at this place. They've gone to it just as if they would go to an arcade room for the day. They've gone to your place to do this all day, and then the Sunday they leave. And so now you've gone and you've created this place where families are now willing to pay a premium, and now the property actually financially makes sense. This is I'm gonna have to
I think this is something.
There's something there.
I think the important thing is that you have a take on your short-term rental. Like you have to be able to make a decision to say, like, you know what, this is more of a weekend place, so I'm going to give them weekend activities. You have to look at your data. Maybe it changes over time, but if you know that you're really only going to crush it on the weekends, you don't need to. They don't need. There's only so much time. I mean, you have 48 to 72 hours. So and they're going to do other stuff. But if you have like a week-long stay and that's your thing, like you have to dial it back a little bit.
It's the same idea as like people going to a mountain market to go snowboarding, right? They go up Friday, they snowboard Saturday, they go home Sunday. Well, now you're going to buy a piece of real estate where there's nobody around. There's nothing to do around there. But now you're creating that midday Saturday thing to do at your Airbnb. And people are willing to pay a premium to be able to do that. I got to figure out what that thing could be that is almost like replicatable, where it's like you can do it quite a few times and in different areas, and people would really want to go out there.
I mean, I think this kind of like modified escape room scavenger hunt has legs. I really like it because adults like escape rooms. You know what I mean? It's like it's just something that's a little different. I mean, it's why it's cool when you have books and board games. Like my son and I play like a lot of board games, and like having good board games is great. And one thing that I think this is kind of a little bit off topic, but it'll go back to things we were talking about on the drive up. I've found that when I get one and I'm back in it, like I'm going to create a lot of videos because I'm always big on videos, but I feel like if I had videos for things that, where people showed me where things were, it would be a lot easier than just reading the list. I still love a welcome book, but the welcome book gets old. Like I've stayed at Airbnbs where like this welcome book's from like 13 years ago. Yeah. They're like recommending restaurants that closed and I don't even know that they existed. So like updating with video is so easy and sending your friends and just being there. And that's why I think like for me, I want to be able to go there so I can check on these things, stay there, send my friends, do these checkups, because you can't, every year you have to look, like we were saying before, you want to be checking the regulations, but you also want to see like, hey, what is my length of stay? What did these you could just put all the comments for 1 year into ChatGPT and get a highlight reel, and that's going to tell you what to do for next year. It's literally right there. I mean, these systems are great to be able to pivot a little bit for the next year so you can go up in your income each year.
Yeah. I mean, this is like you said at the beginning of this episode, and like we said earlier, Airbnbs are changing constantly. Well, to an extent, right? They're still, you're still selling a bed, but people are trying to sell more of an experience, whether it be a couple experience or a family experience or a friend's experience. Like people are trying to sell these experiences through their Airbnbs. And what we're just talking about now is like, well, how do you actually just add in, call it an experience, or even just an activity, right? Like an event, like a thing, like it. Fascinating. I'm not kidding. I got my wheel spinning on this one right now. That is super intriguing. I enjoy talking to you. I can go through these things. I do have a call in 3 minutes, but honestly, talking to you is probably the easiest thing when it comes to this stuff. I can't believe that was almost an hour.
I know, right? Awesome, man. So tell everyone where to find you. Of course, we have a code. So I know if they go to strsearch.com/Zen, they can use my code and get into that. And hey, look, if you want to come up to New York, you're going to be working with John's team and me. So, you know, got to be fully transparent about it. But as you can tell, John and I have fun with this stuff. So best place for them to go is strsearch.com, and also on Instagram, the Airbnb Data Guy, right?
Yes, sir. And I always like to mention this on every podcast. The objective of my company is to ensure that nobody buys an unprofitable property. To be able to do that, we can't put a paywall behind education. And so we have, I have a training on the website where you don't even have to give your email that explains my exact process for analyzing Airbnb data to find profitable properties. And I built it after identifying 120 properties and every single one of them being profitable. So you can quite literally take the exact process, reverse it for yourself.
I watched it.
There you go. Reverse it for yourself and then go from there. Now, mind you, if you don't want to do that, or if you're not like data inclined, or you don't have the time, that's where we have the option for you to work with us. But we didn't want to force you into working with us. And so you have that ability to get that education yourself.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I think we've just created a new revenue stream on this episode.
I think so too. This is like, I'm going to talk to so many people about this. It's not even funny.
Yeah, I think we got it. All right, man. Always appreciate you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All right. That was John Bianchi, the Airbnb Data Guy. You can find him at strsearch.com. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up on episode 286 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And it's my friend Neil Henderson of Nomad Capital. If you're looking for passive investment opportunities with the potential for high returns, heads up, self-storage is a great option to consider. That's what Nomad Capital does. But Neil has done a little bit of everything, and we go all through it. We'll see you next episode with Neil.